So for the viewers out there, I have to ask the question: under such intense, high pressure circumstances, your life could be taken at any minute. How do you deal with it?
You deal with it. You don't think of it. You don't have time to be worried because you're dealing with the situation that's in front of you. So you had a deal. Later on, it may have bothered you a little bit after you've come down and you're alone. But during the situation, you learn to deal with it. You have no choice. Your life is on the line, and it could be the life of others. So you have to be a Laurence Olivier a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, you've got to be, quick of mind. You've got to be quick on your feet. I mean, you'd step into this, this kind of stuff, because people would find this hard to believe, Ron. I mean, I can understand.
No, you were in the life, yes.
I can understand what it is to have to live a life of organized crime. But normal people, they wouldn't understand. They'd say, well, okay, I'm getting that. But why wouldn't you run away or take yourself out of that situation? Why would you persist to keep putting yourself in danger? What would you say to them people?
You don't know the answer to that. There is no answer, because you just continue. That's all, because to run away is never an answer. If you run away and try to hide, then you're going to be figured out anyway. So you have to live through it. You have to continue with what you've started. If you try to hide or put your head under the blankets, you're going to surface eventually. So you can't do that. You have to work with it.
It's a good question, and people would wonder that. Thank you for the answer. So you was very, you see, because it's living with this stuff day in, day out.
Yeah.
Were there times that you really thought the game was up, Mark?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. There were a number of occasions where I thought the game was up. But you learn to live with it, and you go on like nothing's wrong. If you start acting like something's wrong, it's like a dog smelling fear. They're going to know. So you go, that's a bunch of garbage. Stop it. I don't want to hear that stuff.
Yeah. So you
got to be tough yourself too. You just can't you can't cower in a corner. You got to be just as tough as they are. Yeah. If you're not just as tough as they are, then they're going to see through you.
Tougher even.
Yeah,
There's an old quote, I think it says,
I had a guy that wanted to frisk me once.
Yeah.
I had a guy that wanted to frisk me, and I had a body recorder on me. And that part of the tape came out clear. This guy was a real shooter too. I mean, this guy was a nasty guy, and he wanted to frisk me. And I says, you should be ashamed of yourself. How dare you talk to me like that? Then he finally, I was just as tough as he was. He said, well, out of respect for your father, I won't do it. That part of the tape came out real clear.
Very close. I mean, in them situations, it takes a lot of strength, a lot of nerve,
a lot of gallons.
So tell us about another example where you come that close for your cover to be blown and certain death, Ron.
Yeah, when I went back, my cover was blown the next time. My cover was blown, and that's when it got tough on me, when my cover was blown. But getting before that, let's see, those were two occasions that it really bothered me. A third one was with Jack Kemp. Jack Kemp was who ran for vice president of the United States, and I were pretty close. And what happened is during the trial, I was charged with a couple of others on setting up a minority company. Now, I was a front for Sammy Pieri, who was a mobster. And I actually had to go meet with the judge in advance. This is a bizarre story where I had to meet with the federal judge. And he says, what happens if you're tossed out of the case? I said, I can't. The flags go up. They'll know who I am if I'm tossed out of the case. I unfortunately have to go through this, judge. My life's on the line. He says, well, I don't know if I can do that, and things like that. I called Jack Kemp. I says, this is a problem I have, Jack. He said, well, Ronnie, I can't help you, on something like that. And then I started thinking, Jack had some ties, but not strong enough. I mean, he had ties through his office. If he kept it later on, I didn't know of his ties until later on. And he did keep it quiet. And eventually the judge admitted to the fact that he did meet with me in advance over this, because I told him I have to go through the trial. I literally have to go through the trial, even though I'm not part of it. I have to go through it. And of course, it was a hung jury. And later on, it came out, that I had talked to the judge.
So what was that time, that moment after 17 years undercover, that your cover was blown? What actually happened, or what transpired?
Well, we had a U.S. attorney that was connected to the mob. He had a lot of mob connections. I wrote about it. And when he became U.S. attorney, I wrote the Bureau. I met with the Bureau on a number of occasions. I have a problem with this guy, especially if you tell him who I am. And they had no choice. They said because he's the U.S. attorney, they have to turn the information over. I even have audio tapes of one of the mobsters telling me that it didn't come from us, it came from them, meaning the Justice Department, that you're a source. And then eventually a mobster told me via his brother-in-law that I better get out of town. So that's when I left. And the Bureau picked me up right away. I mean, they didn't have a problem. And that's when I joined. That's when I went on the payroll.
So they had there was some kind of code for this if your cover's blown and they picked you up? Is it some kind of process for this?
No, it's not a process. I was talking with them on the phone, and they said, just come on, we're going to meet you at such and such a place. They put me in a private area that I don't want to get into that stuff, the process that we go through. But they put me under wraps, let's put it that way, for a while. And made sure I had
I guess, like a debrief. You have some kind of a debrief?
Well, I went through a lot of debriefings all my life, but I went through more at this stage. And now we started preparing to bring some of these matters to court, the Laborers International Union, things like that. Now that I surfaced, the Bureau was always good to me in that sense. I cannot say it. Two things I could say. The Bureau never asked me to lie. Never. It's what happens with informants a lot of times. They're told that, listen, you want to get out of jail, the more you give us, the better deal you're going to get. And I would explain to them, don't do that, because that's going to lead them to exaggerate and not tell the truth. And I've seen that a lot. Don't do that. You stay with the truth.
So where was the CIA at this point when you'd come out of the life, your cover was blown, and the FBI, your handlers, I'm guessing, you was there with them. Was the CIA in the picture there?
Not at that time. They were out of it for a while, and they came back later on.
Why did they come back then?
That was because of a friendship I developed with a number of case officers in the Bureau. I mean, in the CIA, like case agents. And, Jack Platt, for one. There's others that Dick Stoltz. I was one of Dick Stoltz's boys. He was pretty big in the CIA at that time. Early on, he had ran that one operation I was involved in. And we became pretty close. And eventually that's what led me to Williamsburg was Dick Stoltz, because he had lived down here at that time. He's dead now. But Jack and I were close. And that's when I started getting involved in, a mix of overseas operations. I would speak I would lecture at classes at the FBI and the CIA. I would go to different places and lecture on undercover work, how to do things, as well as the various activity. I even went for Russian classes. I was speaking in front of Russian classes at the academy, the FBI academy. I was at the academy on a regular basis. I did that on and off for 3 years.
Look, I know you've lectured at Quantico, on many occasions. You've lectured there, right, as an expert. Now, I want to go back a little bit because for the viewers, I'm just trying to get chronological kind of anchor here of when you was in the life. This would have been around the time that, and say the Gambino family, for instance, you had Paul Castellano was boss and guys like this around that time. Is that correct? Yeah,
that's early before I surfaced. Yes, he was there. And I knew a lot of Gambinos, the Giardinas, Local 23, as well as others. I knew Joe and Gallo. It was quite a Joe Pioneer and Moan. I knew quite a few of them, and we would get together with them, with the Tadaros. If it were the Pieris, we'd get together with the Genoveses. And, I knew Ponte from Ponte. I could go on and on with the people I knew.
So, was there any kind of, we know what happened to Castellano with...
Yeah, even Bellotti, Tommy Bellotti.
Sparks, Tommy Bellotti. So, did you hear anything about this, about murders? I guess you'd be hearing about the murders all the time in the grapevine while you were still undercover, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, no, I've heard of murders, but not those particular murders. I didn't know about those. If I was aware of something coming up, I would tell the Bureau. The Bureau was more the one that would handle that. That definitely wasn't CIA. But I didn't know about Bellotti or the Castellano killing. That was news to me. I didn't know. I know that we had a deal with the 2Gs when we did work in there. I was working on New York City with an asbestos removal contract, and the 2Gs were involved. Gotti, Giganti. That's what they would refer to them as. And you had to use all mob companies. I had to pay kickbacks, and which were recorded by the Bureau, and led to the conviction of a number of Genovese people with the Mason Tenders Union and others. There were quite a few, in fact, that were convicted. Yeah,
Carmine Giganti, of course, is a massive name. He was assassinated in Brooklyn. He was involved in a lot of the heroin trafficking. There was the Pizza Connection case with the.
Well, I knew one person in the Pizza Connection, and he was from our area. I knew him, and I can't think of his name offhand, but he was involved in the transfer that. They were moving it through bricks, construction equipment, things like that as well, not just, other areas. So they were doing quite a lot of it.
Yeah, this was a massive thing. I mean, at that time, I think the Sicilian Mafia was responsible for about 80% of the heroin trafficking, certainly into the United States. Now, just asking you that one there, Ronald, because around that time, and you would have been aware of a lot of this activity. Did you ever come close to Giganti?
No, I never met Chin Giganti. I don't think so anyway. No, I was close to a lot of the people, the capos underneath him that answered directly, and Jimmy Marsala and all those people, but I didn't know Chin. I didn't know John Gotti. I mean, I never met John Gotti. The people I knew were actually loyal to Castellano. They weren't loyal to him. Joe Piney would have never approved, Armone would have never approved that. He was not that type of person. I just can't believe, and that's who John Gotti answered to. So I think it was just a renegade hit when they went and did this without the approval of the family.
It seems so. I mean, I've talked to guys who was in that inner circle at that time, and they've shed a lot of light, on what was going on there. I mean, the Chin after put the hit on Gotti for.
Yes, that's true. In fact, I was told by the Bureau.
And DeCiso, DeCiso was blown up in the car. That was meant for John Gotti, but that come from the Chin. Now they say with the Chin, he was certainly one of the most cleverest old school dons of the time. What would you say to that?
Well, he walked down Sullivan Street. They called him the Robe, so he was faking his illness. It got to the point that he probably really was ill a little bit. I believe he was possibly a little off balance, but that's not how the Genovese family operated. There were many people in the Genovese family that runs things. To this day, I really don't know how the Genovese family operates. There's no one head. I mean, you had Barney Bellomo on the rise. You had Salerno as a front man. I mean, there were a number of them. I recall when my father had to go in front of the commission, it was Tommy Ebele that was the spokesman for the Genovese family. And it doesn't mean that they were the head. It's like Chicago. Accardo was always there behind the scenes. Yet you see Gianciana, you see Sammy Wings Carlisi, you see all the, but I know Tony Accardo was always the dominant presence. So they put people in a different position. So it's hard to determine who really, was the head, who's the front man, things of that nature.
Yeah, I interviewed Michael Francis, and I asked him the same question about the gin, and he gave me an interesting answer as well. I mean, it has to be said that the gin was certainly the last of the main 5 heads, as it were, that was taken off the street. So he played the game, right? Did you ever know Sonny Francis and Michael?
I think I knew Sonny. I didn't know Michael. I knew Sonny though. I had talked to Sonny, but that I don't recall anything about it except when I seen his face, I recognized it. A lot of these people would greet you, and we'd go out to dinner and that. You just don't remember everybody's name. You can remember a face, but you can't, because there were so many of them. We were always out to dinner with the Colombos. Like I said, Joe Colombo was at our house. We were out to dinner with the Genovese family. I mean, there were so many of us. The Lucchese, there were a number of them too. But you went on. The Bonanos, I didn't really know. My father knew the Bonanos. Them I never really got to know. In fact, that's why there was going to be a hit in Buffalo, because this John Camilleri agreed with, and my father went along with them to bring Joe Bonanno into the Buffalo family. And that's what caused the hit on John Camilleri. Why he was killed, because he was going to go switch with the Bonanos. And my father was scheduled to be hit that night. But there were 2 different stories. Sammy Perry is the one that told me, I saved your father's life because I don't want anything happening to you. He wanted me, they were grooming me for higher things. He wanted me made. Sammy was well known. He was always tied with the Genovese family. He was tied with Cleveland. He introduced me to the whole Cleveland family, New York City, and it was through him that I got to meet all the people in New York and places like that. I would go on Broome Street to meet with different people, deliver messages for Sammy. I ended up knowing more people than my father did, which is hard to say.
I mean, it's fascinating. It really is. The goal to ask you, question is, so how did you reconcile with your own self, with your own views, how you're living this double life, how your father's living? Well, how did that go for you two as a father and son?
Well, it's hard because my father eventually knew. I had talked with my father. We went through somewhat of a role reversal where I became more the telling you what to do instead of you telling me what to do type of role, because I was upset. I said, Dad, you got to get out of this racket. You know that. I can't get out. You just don't get out. And what embarrassed me the most was I got called to a meeting of the commission or the Buffalo family, called to a private meeting. My father was not even allowed to sit in the room with us. He had to sit in the other room because he was passé. His day was over with. I didn't appreciate them treating my father, but that had nothing. It wasn't revenge or nothing like that. I had started long before this, trying to, do what I could to eradicate this cancer. But that was it too. I mean, a lot of it was I didn't like them. I didn't like what they stood for. You're bringing innocent people down. I just seen too many workers, too many people that were victims, and people don't realize they're victims. That's the thing. They don't realize they're victims. They say, well, this job is better than, of course they could have been elevated, not that they realize, I'm happy just to have my job. And I don't want to make that, I don't want to, cause waves or, disturb what's going on. People don't realize when an evil's there, you have to do something about it. Because it's your money they're stealing. I mean, these people are partying down in Cancun, Mexico, the Caribbean, wherever you want, on these members' money, and they're bringing their family. They're living in the finest hotels, eating the finest meals, flying first class. I mean, you're supposed to be a union official. That's how you treat your workers. You don't do that.
So this corruption, this corruption that was very, very inherent, and I know you was very, very keen in the unions back as the day, as we said. How do you think it is today, Ron?
It's still there, but it's smarter. They've changed. They've mutated. They know to be public about something is to find a cold jail. To pull a Gotti is to find a cold jail, is what we used to like to say. So they're smarter about it. They work in healthcare business. Right now with the COVID-19, they're making a fortune. This is the biggest thing that could have happened to them. They do everything from delivering the medicine, Uber drivers, whatever you have. I'm not just saying Uber, but they make sure they're in the chain to deliver things. Taxi drivers, they're making all kinds of money. They're making money off of the hospitals. They make money off of creating software for the hospitals. Now, by creating the software, they know the hospital's prices. As a result, they have access to those prices. They can, even for the smallest medicine bottle, they know the prices, and all you have to do is bid under what they have, and you have the contract. Then later on, once you're locked in, you can raise the prices.
And raise the price, elevate, premium price. Now, so thanks for that, because it gives a kind of an idea to the audience of what was happening, and some of the iconic names of the day. Then, so when your cover was blown, you've gone to your hand of the FBI. So where did that leave you then? What was next for you, Ron?
Well, the hard thing was moving away from my family. Seeing my kids. My ex-wife said she had a gun, she'd blow my brains out. So it wasn't as hard from her because her father was connected to the mob. Not that I blame her. I don't. She was a good woman. But, it was the mentality at the time. So I started living a life, living in different areas, meeting with FBI agents, traveling to the academy on a regular basis, and working on new matters, as well as developing the matters that we had in front of us. So it was a constant. I was working constantly for the FBI.
And you joined? I mean, what was your role?
Well, I could have been, but I worked under contract. At this time, I was what you call a contractor. I worked under contract for the FBI as well as I did for the CIA. I never became an officer in the CIA or an agent in the Bureau. I just worked under contract, and I was paid well. They pay you well, but you have to work. It's like anything. You have a job. You have to be up at a certain time, and be at a certain place at a certain time. And you did that. It was constant. I would say it's about 50 hours a week I work.
I mean, I'm guessing, there's certain operations because, this borders on kind of black ops. I mean, you're in the business.
I mean, some stuff I can't get into.
Yeah, but give us an idea what you can, Ronald, about some.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, one of the areas I got into, with the CIA you're talking about, and the FBI overseas. Are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean,
Now one of the areas I got into was the spy swap. I knew Anna Chapman, the Russian girl, and I didn't know that when I met her, it was out of liquor. One of my businesses was importing vodka from Eastern Europe, from Belarus, and she ended up getting a hold of me and wanted to import our vodka into London or into the UK. So I met with her in London, and little did I know that she's looking at me, not that I'm looking at her. I didn't know she was working for the Russian government. This was all news to me. At that time, I had to be careful in London because Boris Berezovsky and I did not get along. I had my problems with Boris. Boris the Builder. He was in London. They eventually found him hung. And I had developed a relationship with the Putin administration and the Belarusian government. And the Ukraine. I mean, I was close to many of the European countries, or Eastern European countries. And Boris Berezovsky had caused a lot of problems. And this is during the Yeltsin era. Yeltsin had agreed to give him the rights to what we called Soyuz Plato import. That was the export of Stolichina vodka, Ruskaya had another vodka that they had, Moskovskaya, Moscow. Stolichina means the capital. And so he took the rights and he gave them to a Yuri Shifler. They moved. So now, after that, they started taking control of it, and they moved it offshore, and they started manufacturing it in Riga, Latvia. That's where Stolichnaya is made today. And as a result, I was working with friends of mine, Timothy Borodin, and other people that were in the trade business. We decided to get it back, and this is true. I mean, this is how I ended up getting close to him. And we went through the Stolichnaya vodka, and found out that he did, and Boris Berezovsky was the power behind him. So slipped it through Yeltsin's hands, and they were selling it all over here in the United States, the UK, and all that is this Russian-made vodka. In reality, it's made in Riga, Latvia, and the Russians wanted it back, and they couldn't get it back. So they came, they worked with me, and I dealt with logging off from the Soyuz Plot import. The Soyuz Plato import, he was responsible for all the vodka leaving the country and import. And, here they had changed the name. So now they put it under Schiffler's name, but it was Boris Berezovsky. That led to a lot of the feud. I learned that the feud started one time with Putin. Putin called a meeting of what they referred to as the Sparrows Club. You had Abramowitz, Gajinsky, Berezovsky, Putin of Alpha Bank. They were all there. And in the meeting, Putin had asked them to start helping a little bit, to give a little bit back to his government. Putin agreed. The others did not. Putin from Alpha Bank agreed, but the others did not, and Berezovsky was put on the outs. So he moved to London to get out of the way. And that's where he went. And Schiffler, he moved out of the country, and he hangs around with, what's his name, the actor, the young kid on his boat. He's got one of the largest yachts in the world. He has Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, so Schiffler moved out. He's doing fantastic. And Russia got, they got screwed up. And at that time, actually, it was a matter of developing good relationships. We were not looking at a bad relationship. We were looking to develop a relationship where we had friendship on either side. This was our objective, that we worked together. We had more in common than we had that would have been against us. And that's what we were doing. And so we had developed good relationships. You were open about it. But the thing is, I found out that when I met with the vodka, we went up to, I can't recall the name of it, but that handled Cristal vodka and all the various things. And we met in their office, and we were escorted by the Russian Mafia. And we had a military escort. Here we have the military taking us around, going up and down Tverskaya, which is the main drag in Moscow, and we had a military escort, and there are a bunch of young kids. People think of the Russian Mafia as old. No, they're young kids with millions of dollars, multi-million dollars. And they had their different factions, but you brought them together. And, at that time, we also thought that we had Putin leaning our way, that he would come around. And we, to this day, still feel, a lot of us, that it was a result of us shutting them down. We had recommended that we bring Russia into NATO because it'd be better having them inside the tent peeing out than outside the tent peeing in, so to speak. And but that was objected to. Then the same happened with Belarus. We had an opportunity, we felt, to bring Belarus, and I worked with the International Red Cross to bring wheat, pshenica, into Belarus, and they turned us down. It was during the Clinton administration. I'll never forget, I talked to one of Clinton's representatives, Silverstein or Saperstein. I can't recall his name, but I called him by the wrong name. He said, no, my name is so-and-so, and no, we're not going to help you. So that ended that.
Here's a thing. Let me come in and, here's the thing there. That's fascinating, by the way, the intrigue of it all. And this stuff goes on every day of the week, every week of the year, every month, every year, right? And it's very underground, even more underground and more Candlestein than the Mafia, right?
Yes.
A lot of these things are intertwined, and the arms dealing and wars and all this stuff. But here's a question. So if you're, you're contracting for the CIA, you're contracting for the FBI. So, are they running you towards putting? I mean, these guys are really clever, especially putting. They know who they're dealing with, right?